The term enterprise can describe an organizational unit, organization, or a group of organizations that share common objectives and work together to provide products or services to customers. The term architecture, on the other hand, refers to structural concepts of a system in its environment, integrated in its elements, relationships, and in the principles of its design and progression. So why am I telling you this? Well, join the two terms together and you get enterprise architecture, a practice that helps determine how an organization can effectively achieve its near-term and long-term objectives. In this episode of Tech Talk, Carla and I speak with Patrice Passé-Coutrin, Director in Technology Consulting, and his colleague Cyrille Fradin, Senior Manager in Technology Consulting here at PwC Luxembourg. We talk about how real-world enterprise architecture can add value to organizations while helping them to align strategy and execution, optimize operations, and reduce risk. So, let's jump right into it!
Welcome to another episode of Tech Talk. This one is episode 17, still season 5, and the topic of today is the one on enterprise architecture. So with us today, of course, I have my super co-host Armin. Hi Armin, how are you?
Hi everyone, thank you, I'm well.
And two guests. Do you want to introduce or shall I?
We have two wonderful guests today. We have Patrice Passé-Coutrin and Cyrille Fradin. Patrice is a director in technology consulting at PwC, and Cyrille is a senior manager within the technology consulting at PwC Luxembourg. To kick us off, Patrice, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing here at PwC?
Okay, thanks. I'm technology director, as you said, and my expertise more in the IT system integration, mostly for the financial services, but not only. It could be for public services, for instance. And some other domain is related to digital transformations, also so post-merger IT integration as well. And as regard of this activity, we try also to ensure that we are always in the right place in terms of regulatory domain at the same time. So it's both that we try to do for our client, basically.
So something that is much in demand, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So regulatory, IT. So it's really the key topic for many of our clients right now.
And digital transformation.
Indeed.
Which is in the minds of many organizations, I suppose. What about you, Cyrille? What can you tell us about yourself and how you got here at PwC Luxembourg?
Hello, so my name is Cyrille Fradin. I'm a senior manager in the technology consulting here in PwC Luxembourg.
So you work together with Patrice?
Exactly, the same team. And my focus is more on the banking and financial industry. And I've been working for almost 20 years in France and Luxembourg, mostly in IT transformation projects and also all core systems implementations. Mm-hmm. So focusing on the transformations of their systems for new ones or improving the existing systems in banks and insurance companies.
So ready for the first question about enterprise architecture? Armin, go ahead.
So let's start with the easy one, then we'll turn on the dial. Can you explain to us what enterprise architecture is?
Let me try to give you a broad explanation about this concept. First, I will say that right now the business ecosystem is quite complex for many companies right now. They need to transform themselves because the competition is quite hard for some of them. So it could be from startup or some other big company. The technology is changing quite fast and very dramatically with some disruptive, initiatives. The customer is have quite some high expectation at the same time. And also you have regulations on top of that, basically. which is also changing very fast. And to do that, basically, I would say, try to simplify a bit the way you need to change as a company. You need to ensure to find some concept in order to navigate in that complexity. And to do so, you would need some enterprise architecture concept. And this concept will go in different parts. So we will dig with process, product, data, people, technology, and many more, I would say. And the idea is really to bring all those parts together to ensure to first simplify and give different view to the different stakeholders. It could be business stakeholders, IT stakeholders, and sometimes also some stakeholders related to security and so on. I will detail that afterwards. And the idea to ensure that they concentrate really on the business strategy of the company, ensure there is an alignment also between business and IT, basically. This is really concept of enterprise architecture to ensure that everything is aligned at different level.
So it's to simplify a complex
exactly.
Setting.
Exactly.
Okay. Cyrille, do you want to add something or?
I think Patrice was quite exhaustive on the explanation of it.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe a question for you regarding architecture pattern. So, can you explain us what an architectural pattern is?
Yeah, for sure. An architectural pattern is quite simple. It's a method used for arranging blocks of functionalities in order to address a specific need. So the key elements for this is really to be general, to be a reusable solution, and to address a specific either problems or business needs. But it has always a specific context. So the idea is like for Lego bricks is to have these building blocks and to reuse it when you are facing a similar issue. And it will be applied for all the software development that you are doing, but also on the business aspects, on processes, and also on all the data topics.
I really like what I hear.
I'm sure.
Do you have any practical example for our listeners of how an architectural pattern looks like in real life? What could they imagine their organization, for example, that they face and then say, okay, I identify this as an architectural pattern, or this is where I could apply an architectural pattern?
It's more a way of applying architectural pattern, because basically you will choose the various layer of architecture, but then you will reuse either microservices or SOA. I will explain it a bit deeper later on, but then you will be able for all new software to reuse the same type of building blocks and functionalities. So if you have developed web service or microservices for managing documents, for document management, it can be on a specific software. But then when you will implement a new website, a web banking that will need to handle documents, you will reuse these elements.
That sounds like it really is going into the direction of standardization and then kind of creating reusable components that you can sample.
Exactly. That's one of the key elements for architecture. It's really to have this reusability and scalability.
Okay.
Interesting. May I go for the next one? So I know that Patrice already touched a little bit on this question, but if we can go deeper into who is involved typically in enterprise architecture, who are the stakeholders?
Stakeholders, yeah. Definitely, that's why we'll go deeper for that part. So first, I will say this is really business. The different business department. Also is also the business management, which is very key because they need to deliver first the strategy and how it will be, I would say, visible on the different component of the company. So besides that, you have also the IT leaders that should be also involved. I will even say must be involved in that case. So they will have some dialogue between these two business and IT stakeholders first. You will have also some business analysts because they will be required to in order to make all the interpretation between the business and the IT. So this will be really the link between business and IT. That's the logic. And you will have some more specialized people in first in the architecture domain, such as some enterprise architect, some solution architect, technical architect. So why you have this diversity? Because you have different layers, basically. So you have the layer related to the business. So you will go for a business architect. You have the layer for the data. So you will have some data architect and so on and so forth. That's the logic. But you have some other more, I would say, specialized, I would say also stakeholders related to security, because data security is really key right now. There are a lot of regulation around this, several norms. If we talk about regulations, you have the GDPR, for instance, and you need to make it, I would say, also visible at the process level, at the data level, and your infrastructure level, and so on and so forth.
It sounds like a lot of people are involved.
Yes, and I was wondering if, given this kind of transformation, the whole organization itself needs to be, I wouldn't say involved, but they need to be...
at least consulted at one step in the process, right?
Yeah, onboarded at some point. That's, yeah.
Yeah. But it seems to me that if you look back in the past 10 years, we've been going from one crisis to another. And also technology has evolved rapidly in the last 10 years. So I think the IT landscape of many of the companies would be unrecognizable if you look back 10 years ago.
That's true.
So how do you manage enterprise architecture in such a fast changing environment?
So how to do it basically is like a specific function. So you need to put some governance around it. So need to define the different roles between all these stakeholders, basically. Have some different theoretic committees because you need to ensure that the decision making is clear, fast also, because you need to move on quickly as well with all the changes I already speak, basically. And you need to have some process around it, some tools as well. So it's key to have some tools that will allow you to I would say, design all these different layers, as I speak before, process, data, all your application landscape, and also all your infrastructure landscape. So a tool is definitely deserve to invest in, definitely.
One of the key elements is really to have like this central overview, and it needs to be very well documented. So to ensure like a well and a consistency in the enterprise architecture.
Okay, you mentioned technology. So what technology trends are impacting enterprise architecture currently or in the future as well?
There is many tech trends which are impacting enterprise architecture. One of them is edge computing, which is an alternative to usual cloud computing. Basically, it brings all the calculations and closer to the devices and to the data where it's really stored. So basically, it will have an impact on the EUT devices and all the portable devices.
So cloud computing has competition.
Yeah. And one of the other key elements, key trends, is hyper automation. So with RPA, API, and also intelligence, artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And we have on the data layer all the data governance, data analytics topics, which are really key for the moment. And last but not least is DevOps, agility, and the continuous integrations and continuous delivery. So it has an impact on the architecture of software. So we need to be closer to what we are developing. in order to test it faster and to make the adjustments that are required to fulfill the business needs or the end user needs.
Okay.
So I guess this kind of when you have these architectural patterns and so on, there is a very rigorous element of testing and making sure that it's really fit with the business purpose of what you're trying to do. Can you walk me through a time when you led the enterprise change with the enterprise architecture? A time when you did a similar project?
What are the steps?
The different steps, basically.
When do clients approach you, for example? What is the starting point of the discussion? Is this when they have a very complex IT landscape and it kind of prevents them from innovating? Or is it maybe because of they don't understand the regulatory? Is it a combination of both?
You may have different initiatives. I would say the most disruptive one is when they need to change their core system. so they need to change almost all the application landscape. And if they go for core banking or core insurance systems, basically, they need to see what will be the impact at the process level, at the organizational level as well, because people will not perform the same job, basically. So you need to change also the job descriptions. With that concern, also you need to change also all your data model, because from your legacy system to your new systems, the data model is totally different. And you need to organize all the data migration. So you need to have all these data models, which is clearly designed within your enterprise architecture. And if you change your core system, the way how you put it physically in the different data centers is also totally different. So most of the time they go for our service related to enterprise architecture when they go for a very disruptive core system, I would say rationalizations in some way. And there's some other initiative which is related to regulations. Most of the regulations have it in different parts of the company. So same process data and so on. And to really understand where are the impacts, they need to have this kind of map, this different layer of map, basically, to ensure that all the transformation will be enough accurate for the different stakeholders. So when I'm talking about the stakeholders, it could be, if we talk about the process, it will be related to the operations people. If we talk about the data, you will have some link with the data architect, with the data analyst, and so on. So different people will be, I would say, impacted. So to have this map could help really to ensure that everything is really exhaustive in terms of how you need to transform. And time to time, they even ask us to perform some kind of simulations, because as the budget is not so high, we need to perform some different scenarios. So in terms of whether we go for the very disruptive scenarios or we leave for a very small one. So with the different map, we can, for the smallest one, we will have some here, and here also. And for the biggest one, we are able to obviously go even at the cost level also. Because within the enterprise architecture, there are some items related to cost also which appear, and which is also key for the decision making if we talk about investment, for instance.
In that sense, is it possible to calculate the return on investment for enterprise architecture project?
Yes, indeed. A different level. So I will make a list of the different dimensions that you can go for. For instance, it could help to, if you go at the cost level, it could help to rationalize your IT, but also rationalize your process. Because if you look at your process, you can see there's some room from, I would say, simplifications. So at the IT level, but also at the process level. You can try to de-risk also your company related to cyber attacks, for instance, to any data breach that you may have also. So it's related to data. The other one is related more to the infrastructure level. You can also try to de-risk your operations, because as you have the process, you can identify the area where you may have some risk. So you can insert some controls at the same time. So this is something that you can document. Same. And at the end, you ensure that you also align with the business, because by getting all these business RSC goals, you ensure that everything is clearly declined, at the same as the different layer.
I have a out of the question list question. Fear. No, I think because you mentioned budget, and I guess that's a challenge that you face. What other challenges do you face when you are implementing enterprise architecture?
The idea is also try to help people to make them aware they need to invest in the tools related to enterprise architecture, and also some effort in order to document things. Because most time when we arrive on the battlefield, most of the things are not documented.
And many times all the knowledge left the company because it was also with legacy systems. So we need to reverse engineer processes, data flows, and so on.
Wow.
No. I guess that's actually quite common when you're working as a consultant and you go into the client organization, and the first thing you do is you always data request, right? And you have kind of a laundry list of the items, and then your worst fear is if there is no data coming back, and then you have to start zero. But that's also what makes many consulting projects unnecessarily costly for the clients. I assume it's just because consultants typically have to spend 60% of the budget in just understanding the current situation, because there are no tools that already manage the enterprise architecture. Nothing is documented, and that's where it becomes costly, I assume.
And probably what they have in place is obsolete by now.
Yeah.
Or at the moment that they come to you, it's
you can already even miss, I would say, some part, because when it is not clearly documented, as we are engaged really for a short time period, you cannot, depict all the company by, really in the full detail. I mean,
of course.
So by having all these enterprise architecture models clearly, I would say, design, it will help us also to faster our job, but also ensure that we do not miss something, basically. Yeah,
and it's also difficult to rationalize that to stakeholders in the organization, because enterprise architecture is something so future-oriented, and then you are constantly trying to bring them back to the present and the past and say, okay, but what are you doing now? How has it come to this point, and so on? And that's where it gets frustrating. But apart from having to collect a lot of data when you come in, what other personal qualities are valuable to have as an enterprise architect?
First, you need to be a good leader, because you need to drive many different people at different levels, from the C-level up to the very the technical analyst, basically. So need to also adapt also his speech to these different stakeholders. So you need to have very good communication skills, that's for sure. And some expertise also in different domains. So whether in the business architecture domain or the data architecture domain. So at least two of these 4 domains, I would say, at least. And because it will allow him to really to identify the different impacts and the different relations, because the objective of the enterprise architect is really to make this interaction, this relation between all these layers, basically.
So I understand you must understand what everyone is doing as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a generalist, but a kind of specialist at the same time.
So a bit like project management as well. A project manager also needs to understand.
Okay. But then need to also to dig a bit in the content. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other qualities?
I need to be very curious also because as you need to dig in different technology trends, definitely curiosity to be, have some technology watch time to time. It also help to, as you say, drive to the future.
I would also add it needs to be a diplomat because it needs to reconcile the business and the IT world in order to have like just one single point of view on the strategy and also on the architecture point of view.
Do you speak from experience?
Yes, that's so true, and you really have sometimes to learn that the hard way because, we can have different points of view in business about different things. When it comes to the IT, it's at the end of the day, it's ones and zeros, right? it's digital and it's lines of code, and then the code does not discriminate. It's either this or that way. I mean, yes, there are tools. I mean, the way that the whole code manifests itself, or different things that we talked about. But at the end of the day, it has to be one answer only. It's either 1 or 0. How would you market the benefits of enterprise architecture to the executives? So imagine if we have, and I believe we have many CTOs or C-level people listening to this podcast. How would you market the benefit of enterprise architecture? Why is it so critical?
We have already mentioned earlier that many tech trends are impacting the various companies. And one of the key elements that they need to embark these key trends into their new strategy. And they need to adapt the IT systems that they are currently are using in order to be to deliver faster services or products to the end clients. And for this, they need to cut functionalities or products and services into smaller pieces in order to have this service-oriented architecture point of view, and it will ease the reusability of the various functionalities, the scalability. It also will reduce the cost of maintenance, and it will also shorten the delivery time of these products and services.
Okay.
I think it's very clear.
That sounds exciting because I really like that quote where they said that in the future all the companies will be technology companies, and now as we enter 2020s, I think this is becoming more and more evident. And
Yes.
There's hardly any company out there that is not based on technology anymore. I mean, everything has become so much digitalized that having this service-oriented architecture, by default, when you start a company, it's the model that you would choose. I see it very difficult that somebody will go for a different approach. But the challenge remains with the big companies that have maybe adopted some IT systems 20, 30 years ago, and they have to make the jump to this kind of model. What would you say to those executives?
Don't be afraid to, as I said, invest in these enterprise architecture models, because really it will allow you to know where you are, basically, and brings all the necessary change that you need to perform to ensure that you are aligned with the strategy. And it will provide you some view on what could be your near future, makes the necessary simulations, and shows that you are still, profitable at the end, whatever the stakeholders.
So to sum up, how does enterprise architecture support a business's goals and strategy?
I will say we can have different conclusion on that. I will say first, it really make the link. I will say also with the customer. We should not forget about the customer. I will say you have the company, but you have also the customer, and it ensures that everything is really aligned from the customer until the infrastructure. So that's very key. Because companies are very complex right now. So even a small company, at the end, they need to grow, so they will become more and more complex, and they need to drive the journey accordingly. And enterprise architecture could definitely help for that purpose.
And maybe if we go back to the definitions of enterprise architecture, the key elements is to reply to a business need, so end user needs. So it's really to make a link.
Which, by the way, Patrice has been here before. We had a podcast about customer transformation. So it's linked.
It's definitely linked, yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, the business and technology are there for the customer. And more in what we see now in the 20s, the experience matters a lot. So the customer experience. So I guess the goal of the service-oriented architecture is really to enable that experience to take place and to evolve as the customer needs evolve and to be ready to be deployed in any of the new contexts that the organization and the customer might find themselves in. Perfect.
Yes, I don't have any more questions. Do you, Armin?
No, not specifically. I think this was a very interesting conversation. I got to learn so much. I hope listeners enjoyed it.
Welcome.
I don't know if you have anything to add. Last thoughts, tips, advice?
Or tricks, tips and tricks.
Yes.
So if you have any questions regarding enterprise architecture, feel free to contact us. So that's really the
key message.
Yeah, the key elements.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Bye.
And that's all for today, believe it or not. This is TechTalk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode. Bye-bye.